Thank you for joining Linking Mind and Body for Optimal Golf and Life. My name is Scott Cranfield. You'll see me shortly. But for those of you who have just joined, welcome. And we will just give it a few moments longer just to allow some of the others that are registered to join us as well. You may have noticed in the welcome or the registration email, I may have said in there that we will do some practicals in this, although we're doing it as a home webinar, if you like, because I know you'll be watching this from home with, at this current time, golf courses shut. But if you would like to have a golf club next to you, that's great. You don't need it. The exercises I'm going to take you through don't require the golf club, but after we've done some of them, you may just find it useful to have the golf club next to you just to relate it immediately to your golf swing. Of course, if you are happy it's safe to do so in your environment, I'll leave that for you to decide. And you may also want a pen and paper to make some notes, hopefully, as we go along. So yeah, we'll literally get started in a moment or two. Okay, so here we are. Welcome, everybody. I am Scott Cranfield, in case you didn't know me or recognize me. And thanks ever so much for joining me on this special broadcast where what I'm going to do, my objective, I'm going to take you through partly through some slides, but I'm also going to be doing some practicals as well. So it does mean my camera is going to move around from time to time. So you may get a bit of motion sickness as I do that. I'm wired up as well. But we will go through and play with the technology and get it as good as we can. And I hope, look, here's some of the things I want to achieve for you in this webinar. What I would love, for those of you who know anything about my work, I've always had a fascination with trying to link mind and body into golf. And I think actually that in the current climate we're living in, the current situation we're living in with the pandemic, I think it's a great opportunity to look at golf and borrow from golf, if you like, and how that crosses over into life. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity. And this was part of my inspiration for putting this presentation on, was looking at how we can use golf and trying to get better at golf and how we can then use those strategies, if you like, those ideas to also help us in life as well, and vice versa. Because I think that this particular time, for many people, this can be a stressful, difficult time. Not even being able to go and play golf can be stressful for some people. So I hope that I can share some ideas that will get you enthused about the possibilities for you in your golf and your life. I'm going to share some ideas that you may not be familiar with, slightly different, but they're powerful. And what I hope they're going to do, as I say, is wake up in you a belief and a reality that actually how magnificent your mind and body is. And if you understand some very, very important principles and apply them, more importantly, it can make a huge difference. So I hope that's one of my key objectives that we're going to get across in this presentation. And you will get some practical steps. This won't be just theory. You will actually get some practical steps to apply. You'll apply them as we're going along to some extent, particularly the physical parts when we get to the golf swing section. But you'll have some mental exercises, if you like, some mind exercise that you can apply along with me as I'm doing it, but also that you can do afterwards as well. So I wanted to make sure it's practical. I've put a warning up that you won't find this type of advice through the normal channels, through the YouTubes, the TV, the magazines, etc. And there's good reason for that, which I'll come to as we go through. Let's look at some of the concerns that I'll be aiming to address through this webinar. For me, one of them is that what you find in the golf industry, and this is probably true of every industry, when you're looking for advice, as a golfer, you're looking for advice, how do I get better? And the reality is the advice you're going to find is going to be originated, if you like, pretty much from within the golf industry. Now, what I mean by that is we often put up role models which are classically the tour players, the winners of majors, the winners of tournaments. We put them up as the role models as the way to do it. And they become the benchmark of what everybody else tries to copy, learn from, listen to what they say, watch what they do, and then try and apply all that. Well, there's a big problem with that. And it is a big problem. There's actually many, but there's a few I'm going to address today. And one of them, and the most important one, the one I want to get across, is that your human mind, not necessarily your personal human mind, but the human mind and the human body was around way longer than golf's been around. And there are certain principles that your mind works to, and there are certain principles and laws that your body works to. And sometimes when we go about trying to make the golf swing, we don't follow that because we're trying to follow this model. And that may not always be doing the best service for us. Golf, like many industries, has grown exponentially. And as a result, lots of ideas come in, and lots of those ideas are hugely valuable and can work. But what they don't always do is get to the fundamentals, the absolute critical basics about how you work in your body as a human being and how your mind works, the laws of that. And that's what I'm going to, in this short presentation, I'm going to touch upon that today, give you some of those facts so that you can assess for yourself, what do you make of this? Does this, oh, this sounds interesting, I hope is what you're going to say. I'd like to apply some of this. I'd like to go ahead and do some of that because it's treating me or you then as an individual, treating you as an individual and helping you flourish with who you are rather than trying to copy and be somebody else, which quite frankly doesn't tend to work extremely well. There's a great saying, be number one at you, don't try and be number two at somebody else. And that doesn't matter whether you're a beginner, a 28 handicapper, or a professional. I think that's really important. You can do that when you understand the truth about how your mind and body works. When you understand that, you can start to apply those things and it can make a huge difference in your golf and in your life. Another concern I'm going to address or want to highlight to you is the one where, particularly in today's world, where the amount of information available to us is just off the scale. The instant, or the fact that it's available instantly as well is just incredible. But that can lead to a real problem. It can be great sometimes, you see all this information and it can be fun going through it. But here's the problem. It becomes addictive because you can latch on to the latest feeling, the latest craze. You can latch on to the latest swing tip that seems to work for you. The problem is it gets addictive. Why does it get addictive? Well, here's what's really interesting. When you go and try that latest craze, do you know what? Invariably, it works. And it works straight away. You try that thought, that move, that idea, that tip, and suddenly that next shot's better. But what also happens? Very quickly, it disappears as well, often disappearing just as fast as it came on. What does that lead you to do? I better go and find the next one. So you go and look again and look for the next one, the next tip, the next craze, the next fad. And that cycle repeats. And it gets addictive because we release endorphins into our system when we get excited that it's working. And then it disappears and we go and look for the next one. And it's a vicious cycle of going through. And all this time, we're layering all these other ideas and things on top of us. And we haven't got to the root of who we are and understood how we move and how we think. So again, in this short presentation, that's what I want to do. I want to try and take you back to that place. Because with that knowledge, then you can build something quite profound, I think. With that knowledge, you can be who you are, with whatever ailments, restrictions, limitations you might have, as we all have. You're still going to find out the magnificence of your body and your mind by starting to go back to some of the basics. And we should not underestimate those basics. I love the story of Vince Lombardi, who is a famous American football coach. At the start of every year, before the season, in the preseason training, he'd get his team together again. And these are, the best professional footballers in America. And he would get them together in the preseason training and he would line them up in a circle, get them in a circle around him. And he would pick up a football and he would hold it up and he'd say, "Gentlemen, this is a football. And these are the best players in America." But that's how much he wanted to take them back to the basics. Let's not get carried away with these fantasy, faddish ideas. Let's just get to the basics. Because actually, the magic isn't in the next tip. The magic is already inside of you now. The magic is the amazing machine your body is, the amazing machine your mind is. Do not please underestimate that. I want to peel back the layers of the onion to get to that so that you can reveal that and express that when you play and when you're thinking in golf and in life. Because if you can do that, as I said, the magic is already there rather than having to go and find it somewhere else. Now, that's not to dismiss. Of course, you're going to want guidance, you're going to want advice. But I want you to be empowered as well to have some level of understanding yourself. And as you know anything about, again, my coaching and if you're having lessons with Cranfield Golf Academy coach, you'll know that we're into the holistic approach. We like to set a plan. We like to try and get back to the beginning and take you on a journey, take you on a plan that's layered in the right way. I think that's really, really important. So as I've said to you a moment ago, what I'm going to share with you is not necessarily in the mainstream. And there's a good reason for that. And it's all the reasons I just spoke about. Because what I'm talking to you about are the basics, the fundamental truths about how you function in your mind and your body. Well, that's not necessarily that sexy after a while because it doesn't change. Because, as I said, your mind and body have been around long before golf. And so, in a way, from a marketing perspective, it's not that exciting. Maybe certainly after you've heard it the first time. The challenge is, will you stick to it? But the challenge is, will you begin to understand how amazing your own mind and body is and actually apply some of the things so that that can express itself? But that's why you don't see it in the mainstream. Because also, what sells in the mainstream are the things that create the endorphin rush. Well, when you're dealing with the fundamental truth, you don't have that. You get back to neutral, you get back to nature. And so you don't have that rush, if you like. So that's why. So that's the concerns we're going to address. Let me look at what you might potentially risk if you don't follow this advice. And you may recognize this pattern already. You'll be the feeling of being forever trapped in looking for that next secret. As we said, YouTube, there's just an abundance of tips and advice out there. Some of them are mine. But you can get trapped in that, searching, looking. Albert Einstein was famous for having a quote, which I'm sure has been changed over the years, but basically he said, the definition of insanity is repeating your actions of yesterday and expecting a better result today. Think about that for a moment. You want to get better. Like the plan I talked about before, you might set with your coach to get better in the right way. That's a plan that's got logical order to it, things you're going to learn to progress and move forward. The trap of searching for the next secret sends you on this type of roller coaster, this emotional and physical roller coaster that doesn't tend to lead to long-term progress. And so you're expecting a better result. You want to get better. You want to improve your handicap, beat your friends, win the competitions, lower your scores. But actually, when you go back and look, maybe the way I've approached this and gone about this is no different over the last 6 months. I haven't stopped and taken a step back and asked myself, is this actually working? The way I'm approaching this, is this working? So I hope, again, through this webinar presentation, that maybe you will stop and reflect and think, is my approach working? Is it taking me in the direction that I want it to take me? Or is this now a good time, particularly with what's going on in our world right now? It's a good time to stop, think, and maybe apply a few different ideas. I think if you do, I think you'll get some really profound results. I think you'll find that interesting, not just for your golf, but for your life as well. Now, make the comment that I think that the risk you face is an expensive risk, and I don't necessarily mean financially. Expensive in the sense it will rob you of your enjoyment. If you don't take on some of the things I'm discussing here today and you stay stuck in this insanity trap of searching and, getting latched onto the next feeling, I think that's expensive emotionally because you end up on this, you're expending a lot of energy trying to get better in a chasing mentality rather than a solid fundamental mentality. It's time consuming because you kind of anything that's addictive is time consuming. You keep having to find out what the next thing is. And so it's expensive in that way. That's what I mean by that, not necessarily financially. What can you expect if you do follow this advice? Well, a clearer mind, I think, is one of the most important things. I love the saying that of getting out of your own way. And I'll explain why I think it's so important. Because if you can learn to get out of your own way, what you're then left with is what I've alluded to already, is this amazing machine that you have, this amazing mind that you have, this amazing body you have. If you can learn to get out of your own way, i.e. reduce those distracting thoughts, reduce them, then you'll start to see how clever your mind and body is and what it can do. And out of your own way, you'll have a clearer mind. You'll be more emotionally balanced from a golf and a life perspective. And you'll start to perform better because you haven't got those distractions going on and you're allowing this machine to operate. It doesn't matter how advanced technology gets, there will never be a machine that could emulate the possibility of the human mind. Now, some people might think there will be, but that's only because they're only accessing and using just a tiny amount of what their own mind is capable of doing. Think about it. How can a machine greater than the one that's creating it be created? So it will never happen. Your body, the systems inside it, the intricacies, the way it's regulating temperatures, movement, heartbeats, blood movement, all these things constantly without you ever having to think about it is simply magnificent. If you want to just go and look up what your human body does without you ever having to think about it. It's mind-blowing. You'll appreciate your body at another level if you've never done that. You start to have a bit more faith and a bit more trust in your own body of what it can do. You might start thinking, actually, the golf swing maybe is not that complicated. But we need to, again, we live in a very modern world. We're not living necessarily in the way nature may be intended. You know, we're sitting down, we're at desks or at computers, we're traveling in an ordinary world. You know, we're not working out necessarily in the way that nature intended us to do. And so as a result of that, we've moved away. And part of what this presentation will be back is bringing you back home, bringing you back to a place that you can build good foundations on. That's really, really what I want to do. And within that, you will start to produce better timing for your golf swing. When you understand how to take your body home, how to move in a more effective and efficient way, you'll start to get better timing. That means you're going to find the sweet spot more often. That means you'll have that nice feeling of hitting the sweet spot. You'll have more power, more control in your shots when you hit the sweet spot. That's what's going to happen. And when you're doing that, and when you're moving in a way that is more natural for your body, that feels a little easier. There's a bit more flow in that rather than it being hard work. You know, sometimes you feel like you're pushing against how your body wants to work in order to create a golf swing. That can feel hard work. Whereas I think actually, again, what I hope you're going to start to experience if you apply what I'm going to help you with today, and you apply it not just today, but over a period of time, your movement will start to feel easier and your body will enjoy the movement. And therefore, golf and to some extent life will feel not such hard work. Okay, so hopefully that sets you up. Less prone to injury, I think is probably a really important one. Whilst I can't promise that if you do this, you're not going to get injured. What I can say is that when you learn to take your body back home and learn to move it in the way it wants to move, the way it's designed to move, of course you'll have less chance of injury. It's when we're pushing our body against what it wants to do. Again, this is the thing, when we're trying to be somebody we're not, we're trying to create a golf swing that's not us. We're trying to model a tour player maybe that's got a very different physique. That means we can't do what they do necessarily. But don't undermine yourself. You can still do some amazing things with your body, but you've got to take it back to its home to do that. But if you do that, you're less prone to injury. The injuries will tend to come in when you're pushing yourself against what you can do. So that's a really important point. So what we're going to do, I hope that's giving you a basis. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reorganize my camera, and we're going to use a flip chart. I'm going to take you through some of these principles now. So now we're going to get more practical. I'm going to talk about the key principles for your mind, and then we're going to go into the key principles for your body, for the movement, at least in the golf swing. And by the way, at any time you have a question that you want clarification on or you want to raise at this point, just type it into the chat bar. When I get to the end, I will look at those. There may be somebody helping me during it as well, doing the administration, and who can possibly answer them, depending on what the question is. But you can send that question to either me privately or you can send it to the whole group, and I'll have a look as we get towards the end of this, and I will answer those questions for you as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn, actually, let me just turn the camera off so you don't get motion sickness as I move myself around. Okay, I'm still with you. Have a sip of my water, and I'm going to put you back on now, and hopefully, just get rid of my chair. I think we're in pretty good shape here. You can see me okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to now flip between slides and full camera, because obviously when I'm working on the flip chart, I want you to be able to see me in a bigger way. Lucky you. So what I need to do, so this might be a bit tricky, but I'm going to take that part off there. So hopefully you can see me much, much easier now. So the three principles are quality questions, learning to develop a balanced mind, and no stories. And they're the three things that we're going to go through. And I'm going to touch upon some things here, which again, I think will be different to what you've heard before. So reserve judgment, just play with me, listen, go along, and let's just see what you make of this and see how you can apply this. Bearing in mind, I have tried and tested this with thousands of people, from some of the leading golfers in the world to beginners. And so I know these are sound principles through my own research. I had a question at the top of the slide, I think was something along the lines of, what is the optimal mind for golf and life? So let me start with addressing that question. The optimal mind, in my view, is a balanced mind. Our ability to adapt, our ability to handle stress is our ability to adapt to an ever-changing environment. So things go on around us all the time that are changing. That can be on the golf course. Things can change in terms of our score suddenly changes through a bad hole or a good hole, because that can be just as much of a problem for some people. The environment changes, the conditions change, the lie changes, the angle of the shot we've got to play changes, the playing partner changes mood. All of these things are changing. Our ability to handle stress, if you like, is our ability to adapt to that ever-changing environment. That can happen in life, in our relationships, our job, what we're going through right now with the pandemic. Life changes. Our ability to adapt to that is going to be an indication of our ability to handle stress, which of course then has a huge effect on our own well-being. If we can adapt to all those things in really well, then we stay in a mentally and a physically well place. And that's surely going to be a key objective for all of us. So that's what I believe is the optimal mind for golf and for life. Because from a golf perspective, our mind is balanced. Then we don't have the emotions going on. Okay, in life, if our mind is balanced, we don't have the emotions going on. It's the emotions that distract us. They become the distracting thoughts. They are the judgments, if you like. Okay, the judgments we have on ourselves, on others, on life, on work, on circumstance. Those judgments become the distractions. They become the story that we run in our head, and that distraction takes us away from a balanced place, takes us away from center. When we're centered, we're steady. Think of it like a spinning top. If I was to have a spinning top here, and the center of that spinning top, the axis, it was right in the center, I could spin that around. Okay, I could spin that around, and at a fast enough speed that would be steady. That would be steady. And imagine it one stage further, actually. Imagine this was black over here, and this was white. Spinning around quickly, it's gray, because the positives, the negatives, the blacks and whites merge together. They become one. And then you're steady because you're adaptable. If I move that center so it's no longer center and move over here and then spin it, what's going to happen? It's going to wobble and fall quickly because we have a bias. The bias is now over here, and that bias is going to cause that spinning top to fall and wobble and crash. And that could be the same for us. If we can't get centered, then our ability to adapt is lessened. And as a result, we get more emotional, we crash, we fall, in metaphorically speaking. Okay. So I think a balanced mind, that's really, really key. Now, what I'd like to address So there's only three things that we can control in our life. And when we understand these three things we can control, we start to then realize that how important our mind is, how important it is the way we look at things. When we look at those, when we understand there's only three things we can control, we can then make better choices. We can then start, which is the first principle, we can start to learn to ask ourselves questions in a way that will give us different answers. So first of all, what are those three things? Well, they are our perceptions, okay, our decisions, and then finally our actions. Perceptions, decisions, actions. They're the only three things we have control over. Think about it. That's all we have control over. These two particularly create the meaning to the event, which is huge. How we perceive something. I'm going along nicely. I'm playing the game really well. I'm through 9 holes. Let's say I'm level par. Let's say I'm a 5 handicap. I'm level par. I perceive it's going really well. Then I take a triple bogey. How I look at that event and the decision I make based on that creates the meaning. Do I perceive that as, I can't handle pressure. I'm never going to get better than 5 handicap. I've blown it again. I'm useless on this particular hole. That chip shot I just played, my chipping's gone to pot. I'm never going to be good. I perceive that. The perception is those things. I decide I'm no good at chipping. I decide I'm no good at handling pressure. The meaning is I'm never going to be anything better than a 5 handicapper. Some people probably think, well, I'd love to be a 5 handicapper, but you understand the principle of what I'm saying here. Okay. And then our actions will come on the back of that as well. So please understand they are the only three things you can control. Now, what is probably the biggest influence to that? Well, that is principle number 1. So I'm kind of merging 1 and 2 together a little bit here, and probably even a bit of 3, but that's great. The questions, okay? So the quality of our questions, okay? I'm going to do a short version of questions, okay? The quality of our questions equals the quality of our life, okay? Or golf in that sense, or golf. Quality of our questions equals quality of life. Because in the situation, like the example I gave you, if we can learn to ask a different question, we get a different answer. Because your mind is a question and answer machine. It's doing it all day long. The most common prediction is we have something like 60,000 thoughts a day going on. A lot of them are questions. You're asking yourself questions all the time. Do I want to go there? Shall I meet up that person? What shall I do tonight? What shall I eat tonight? What shall I do next? Every single one is a question. The brain automatically searches for answers. Now, here's the really interesting thing. Sometimes your brain, or sometimes you, are not even conscious of the answers, but the answers are going on. So if you ask questions in a way that are not that empowering, not that helpful for you, whether you hear the answer consciously or not, your brain is providing an answer. So if you ask a question such as, why am I so useless at chipping? Why can I never get better than 5 handicap? Why can I never beat that person? Why do I never perform well in this competition or this hole? Questions like that, your brain is searching. Well, those answers aren't going to be that effective, are they? They're not going to be that useful to you. Because it's going to come back and say, well, because you spend too much time on social media. Well, because actually you just practice your chipping in the same way every time. You're useless at the way you practice. Well, because you don't try hard enough. Well, it's not that important to you. These are the answers that are going on in your brain, whether you're conscious of them or not. So the quality of the question, depending on how good the question is, it's going to lead to an answer. So let's learn to ask quality questions. Now, so in golf, what might that mean? Well, let me give you a story in golf that will hopefully explain this. I was fortunate enough to work with a player called Robert Jan Derksen, a Dutch golfer, who won a couple of times on the European Tour. When I first worked with him, he had 5 years trying to get onto the European, or he had 5 years on the European Tour, but not once had he managed to stay on the European Tour. Every year at the end, he'd lost his playing privileges. Then he'd go back to the qualifying school, he'd get another start, and he'd try again, but could never keep it at the end of the year. I got to work with him at the end of that 5th year. And so we worked during the winter, and I assessed his game as I would for anybody. But this would be no surprise to you. Of course, his game was good. He's maybe 150th in Europe at that time. His game's good. It's not that different to the top 10 in Europe, in truth. But what I became aware of is that the way Robert was asking himself questions, he was more focused on what he didn't want to do rather than what he did want to do. And so one of the things, amongst a few, but we didn't do that much work. One of the key things we did was got him to learn to ask a better question when he was playing. So when he was lining up a shot, when he was approaching a shot, he would get a very specific question, which was something along the lines of, what's the best shot for me to hit in this situation? What is the best shot for me to hit in this situation? Straight away, his brain starts to answer. Well, based on where the flag is and where there's water on the right, the flag is on the right, the best shot for me to hit actually, and there's a bunker back left, the best shot for me to hit is into the front left part of that green. Great. Now it's clear, it's precise. Now here's the really interesting thing. What he would do before is, and so he'd hit that shot, and this was a fairly standard response. He'd hit this shot and he would hit it in that front left half of the green. He meant he was 25, 30 feet away from the flag, unlikely to hold the putt, but 2 putts apart. Here's what he used to do. Get onto that tee, and this is a par 3 in particular I have in mind that we were in Dubai once when we were doing this. And he would look at the flag near the water on the right, and he would go, well, I don't want to go in the water, but I think I should be aiming at the flag. So he would aim at the flag, and what he would do is he would pull the shot away from the water, and it would end up in the front left half of the green. Did you hear what I just said? It'd end up in the front left half of the green. The same place that he was now intending to hit it. But here's the massive difference. The first way, or the way that he used to do it, when he was trying to avoid the water, he was now annoyed at himself because he feels like he's pulled the shot away from the hole. So he's now walking down the fairway, beating himself up. Oh, it wasn't a very good shot. I pulled it. I was trying to go at the flag. I bottled out. I got scared of the water, etc. Hugely different mindset. The second way, with just one question, what's the best shot for me to hit in this situation? Best shot to hit, front left part of the green. Stands up there, positive shot, if you like, committed shot, more importantly, at that front left half of the green. That's where it ended up. Walks down the fairway. It's exactly what I intended to do. That's what I wanted to do. Is he going to be in a better state of mind, less distraction, clearer, more centered over that putt on that green? Of course he is. It's going to make a huge difference, isn't it? What changed it? One question. One question. So think about the questions you can use to help you on the golf course, like that one. What is the best shot for me to hit in this situation? If you've had a bad start, what kind of attitude or approach do I now need to recover from that bad start? If you're going really, really well, what do I need to be aware of to keep this good round going? Because sometimes we think having a really good round going is exciting and great, but we get carried away and sometimes we get too positive, too optimistic, and that doesn't help us as well. So questions, use them, can be really powerful. Now, let's just cross this into life, because again, all I want you to do is I just want to help you develop the habit. Because I don't know exactly the question you need or the questions you need, but I just want to give you the habit, because if you start the habit, then I know it's going to impact your life and it's going to impact your goal. So what about questions? Tony Robbins, famous personal development speaker, used to promote, still probably does, promote a thing called morning questions, which I use a lot. Okay. And those morning questions are things like, what am I most looking forward to in my life right now? So you get up in the morning, you might be cleaning your teeth, having a shower. Ask yourself the question, what am I most looking forward to in my life or my day today? Now, sometimes your brain goes, you've seen my life. What is there to look forward to? Okay. But I'll show you a trick in a minute, particularly if you're a parent as well. This would be really, really cool for you. But I'll show you a trick. But that could be one question. Another question. What am I most enjoying in my life right now? Who do I most appreciate in my life right now? Who appreciates me? Probably the most important one, I think, for me, what am I most grateful for in my life right now? And as long as you stop and you reflect and you give yourself the time to think about it and answer it, you're now training your focus to something that's true, because you're asking yourself the question, you're finding a true answer. You're training your focus to something that's true. And in doing so, you then change the way you feel. You get rid of some of the distraction that's going on. You bring yourself back to this gray, truer, more complete place. I said I'd give you a trick. Let's say, for example, your brain comes up when you say to yourself, let's say you ask the question, what am I happy about in my life right now? And your brain goes, well, there's nothing to be happy about. What could I possibly be happy about? Here's what you say to yourself. I know you're not happy right now, but if you could find something in your life to be happy about, what would it be? Then the moment you say, I know you're not right now. Okay, this is why it can be good for kids. But if you could be, what would it be? And what happens is, literally in the brain, the way it's working, I say literally, this is my metaphor for how it's working in the brain, is that the moment you say, I know you're not, the brain relaxes because it doesn't battle you. It goes, oh, he understands. And then you say, but if you could, and it jumps behind the obstacle and finds the new answer, but it finds the truthful answer. And I'll give you another story in golf, because you may want to use this. And it's probably in my top 10 lessons of all time to give this type of lesson. I can be working with a player, and again, very often there'll be a high handicapper. And all I've done is spent time working with them on those basics, getting their setup right, getting them holding it in a way that suits them, those type of things. And they're now set up to the golf ball, and they're feeling good and they're feeling ready. I'm just going to lower my camera so you get a fuller. Whoops. Sorry. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Hopefully I've lowered it a bit. Not a lot. There we go. But they're in that setup. They're now ready. They're looking good, ready to go. And I'd say to them at that point, I'd say, now your setup looks really, really good. What I want you to do now is, from that setup, you could be a professional the way you're set up to ball. I want you now to show me what a professional golf swing looks like. What do you think a 28 handicap says to me? He said, Scott, are you joking? I'm off 28. I don't know what a professional swing looks like or feels like, never mind performing it. And then I say to them, I know you don't. But if you could show me what a professional golf swing looks like, what would it look like? And they go, oh, well, it would look like this. And they go ahead and swing, and they produce a far more fluid, rhythmical, balanced swing than the one they did 3 seconds ago. Because all we did was we took away the resistance, we changed their belief in a heartbeat, and we gave them a possibility through better questions. And just by using that trick, I know you don't, but if you could, what would it be? Use it on yourself, use it on your children, use it on your family, use it at work. It's powerful. It really, really, really works. So I hope you've found that part useful. Let me just keep an eye on how we're doing on time-wise. Okay. Let me now go to one part I probably would like to just cover a little bit more, is the one about balance. There we go. Okay. So hopefully you got the idea of questions. You can use them in the morning, use them in the evening, by the way. Great time to use them before you go to bed. Definitely can put your mind in a much calmer place. Use them on the golf course in different situations, just to help you think through, become more present, and make better decisions. Remember, it's only our perceptions, decisions, and actions that we can control. Let's look at balance. A balanced mind. I'm going to say something to you now. I'm going to ask you a question, actually. I'm going to start with a question. And I want you to think about this question, and then I'll explain why I've done it. Are you always happy, never sad? Are you always positive, never negative? Are you always kind, never cruel? Are you always generous, never stingy? Are you always calm, never raffled? What would you say? You're probably going, no, I'm not always that way. Okay. Are you always negative, never positive? Are you always sad, never happy? Are you always cruel, never kind? Are you always stingy, never generous? Are you always raffled, never calm? Are you? No, I'm not that way either. Okay. Are you sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel, sometimes stingy, sometimes generous, sometimes raffled, sometimes calm? What would you say now? I'm absolutely sure you're saying, yep, no, I can relate to that. That's me. And the reason I know with certainty is because I've either myself or been part of groups where we've asked that to literally thousands of people. The only time people can remain certain in life is when they realize they're both. And yet sometimes society projects to us that we should always be happy, always be positive. The truth is that isn't how the human mind works. You will never find somebody in life who has always been one-sided. There is no such thing as a one-sided person. Just in the same way, you cannot get a magnet and have a one-sided magnet. No matter how much money I offer you to say to you, just bring me a magnet back with a positive end, would you? You can cut it as many times as you want. It's still going to have a positive and negative end, a north and a south pole. Human being is the same. We're magnetic in that way. We have both sides. Every human being does. Nobody's ever going to be away from that. Now, what's really important for you to understand from a golf and life perspective is to open your mind up to that, because we live sometimes creating such unrealistic expectations on ourselves, such unrealistic expectation on others, such unrealistic expectation on our golf, because we're trying to live a one-sided life. We're trying to be a one-sided golfer. We're trying to be a one-sided father, husband, wife, mother, whatever it is, brother, sister, son, daughter. And when we're not that one-sided way, we beat ourselves up. The beating up is designed to happen. It's meant to happen because you're not being true to yourself. You're being unrealistic. Now, how do you deal with that? Well, what I have found incredibly effective is just to, first of all, start to see both sides of things. So we start to be like that spinning top where we can spin in the middle, and the black and the white, the positive and negative, become gray. We become less judgmental. We become less emotional. We're on less of a roller coaster. We're now more adaptable to the ever-changing environment around us. That's going to make us far more present on the golf shot. When we stand over that golf shot, we don't have all these judgments and distractions flying around in our head. We're now much more present. I can now focus on the target I'm going for and go ahead and play my shot. When I've got rid of those distractions and judgment, I'm with my family. I can be much more present with my family. Does that make sense? So here's how you do it. It's really actually incredibly easy. But as I said, I cannot stress for you enough of all the bits I'm talking about here today. Probably the part that you're not going to see in the mainstream media more than anything is this. I've learned a lot of this, by the way, from a gentleman called Dr. John DeMartini, who has researched, gone back centuries and centuries and centuries, and actually realized that people years and years ago were revealing and telling us this. But this is a classic thing where this doesn't sell to the masses because the masses want the opium fix, the endorphin rush of the positivity and the happiness and all this sort of stuff that, quite frankly, is unobtainable. And the Buddha was famous for saying that the source of all human suffering is trying to have that which is unobtainable. In other words, trying to just, let me try and be happy all the time. Let me try and be positive all the time. But you can't do it because you're not designed to be that way, because actually the other side is essential in life as well. You need the other side. So let's come back. I'm going to give you an exercise to do, which will help you see both sides. Because I said, when you do that, you become much more present, much more centered. You have these less distractions going on in your mind that can make you a better golfer. You're more present over your golf shot, make you more effective in the family, at work, whatever it is you're doing. So let me go to that now. All right. So let's take golf first of all. Okay. So what I want to stress again is that your mind always is aware of the positive and negative things. Even when you're striving to be one-sided, it's still aware. In fact, another question we ask a lot in seminars with groups is, how many of you here try to be positive? Every hand goes up. How many of you here still have negative thoughts? Every hand goes up, because the human mind is designed for both, no matter what society tries to teach us. Okay, so again, this is why this is not mainstream, but I hope you're finding it interesting and useful. So let's take golf, for example. If I said to you, playing good golf, so let me just put that in here. Let me put good, hopefully I haven't written that too small for you there. Good golf, okay? If I say to you, playing good golf, more positive or negative, you'd probably go, much more positive. It's great. That's what I want to do, Scott. Play good golf. Okay. Here's a little exercise, fun exercise for you to do that will really help you. Okay. Find out the positives and the negatives to good golf. Okay, first of all, you're going negatives to good golf. There can't be any negatives to good golf. I want you to grasp the fact of how your human mind is designed to work, because it will reduce the distractions, which will make you a better golfer. So let's say, for example, and by the way, there's a really important part of the exercise here. You only go one at a time on each, one at a time on each, one at a time on each, one at a time on each. You do not put one here, keep going down the list here of all the positives, and then go, I can't think of any negatives now. You balance it out, okay? Because that's the truth, again, how the mind works. So let's say, playing good golf, what's the benefits? And you might say, beating friend, okay? So I beat my friends, I win the money, okay? And they could be two different positives. Okay, I say, okay, well, what's the negatives? Actually, you start thinking, you go, actually, I upset my friend. My friend sometimes gets a bit moody. Sometimes they don't talk to me for a day. Sometimes a bit grumpy, they moan. Okay, there's a negative. Okay, so let's just put, again, you'll decide. I'm just making it quick and easy here. Upset friend, okay? And you go through and you find out, okay? So you might say, what's another great thing about playing good golf? And you go, for you, this could be you. I drive it a long way, okay? So I just put drive long. Okay, you go, okay, what's the negative of having drives long? Oh, actually, I get everybody coming up to me after they've played their second shot and say, oh, great drive, great drive, great drive. And I feel under pressure. Okay, that now I've got to perform, okay? So you feel under pressure. Now, why is this so important? Because when you realize these things, you don't fight them, resist them. You realize this is the nature of how the mind works. And when you do that, you'll be much more centered. So can you see the exercise? That's why you don't just build up the positive side or the negative side first. You always go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You'll start to see there are just as many negatives to playing good golf as there are positives. Now, of course, then here's what I'd love you to do from a life perspective. Now do it on another, okay? So let's say, for example, it could be, I'm going to say a family member, okay? So you say a family member. And let me just change the color here for a moment. So you're going to have, let's do it this way, positives, negatives, that family member. One by one, I want you to think about a positive trait or action that they have or inaction, and then a negative one. So you might say, let's say positive family member, you might say they're very organized, okay? Okay, you might say they're very good organized socially. They might be really good at organizing socially. Get as specific as you can. You're saying, okay, what's the negative about them? Actually, they talk a lot. Okay, so you might go through that way, and you go through and you just build it up. And what you're going to find, if you're honest with yourself, you find out everybody in your family has positive and negative traits in equal amount. Nobody's just a one-sided person of being all positive. Nobody's a one-sided person being all negative. They have both. Then you can truly appreciate that person for who they are. Can you then see how that just changes your communication? Radically change your communication, because you now see them as a whole being rather than a one-sided person that you've judged and put on them. You can do this on yourself. You can do it on your golf. For some of you right now, the coronavirus we're living in may have created some real challenges. Do it on the coronavirus. What's the positives and negatives of the coronavirus for you? If that's a thing in your life, if that's something that's become a distraction. By doing that, you'll learn the true nature of how your mind works, and it will transform your communication with others as well. So I hope you found that useful. There's a third part, which I'm just going to do really quickly because it's kind of encapsulating everything I've done. And that was stop telling stories. The stories you tell yourself, well, stop telling stories that disempower you. The stories we tend to run in our mind is how our life ends up. So make sure you're going to tell a story that's an empowering one, if you're going to do it. But here's the part I want to get to with it is learn to see things as they are, not worse than they are. And that's why these are so important. Learn to see a family member as they are, not just worse than they are, not just the one side. See them for the truth. The more you can do that, the more, again, centered and balanced you'll be, which, again, I'm saying is the optimal place for mind and golf. And I'll do this really with a quick story again, golf story. I was working with a Ryder Cup player called Per Ulrik Johansson, Swedish player, and we were at the Benson Hedges tournament, and it was the third round, and he did not, in his mind, play well in the third round. He came off the golf course. He'd slipped from about third going into the third round to about 12th or 13th, I think, at that time. And he came off the golf course, and he said to me, Oh, he said, I've had a terrible day. So I'm driving the ball miles right. Now, he was intense, much more intense than I was just there. So I just decided to break his pattern. So I said to him, I said, wow. I said, I looked at my watch. I said, wow. I said, you've done well then to get round this quickly. He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, well, if you had to keep walking miles right, I said, you've done well to get round this quick. And he said, oh, don't be silly, don't be silly. But I broke his pattern. By breaking his pattern, I could then get in to see things more clearly. So then I said to him, Per, I said, how many drives went off to the right? Exactly. Not like an emotional guess. How many exactly went to the right? So he had to stop and he had to go through because he obviously knew what I was like and how I asked the questions. And I think he said 6 went to the right. Okay, of those 6 went to the right, how many actually cost you in the sense that you didn't have a normal shot to the green, a normal approach, you had to chip out or something? 3. Okay, great. Okay, so actually you hit 3 tee shots that went further right than you want and got you into some kind of trouble that you had to recover from. Yeah, that's true. Now, can you see now I've helped him see it as it is, not worse than it is? As a result of that, can you imagine how he then is going to be different going to the practice ground after that round? It's come off there initially going, oh, I'm driving it miles right, my driving's terrible, game's in terrible shape. That's somebody is now likely to try and reconstruct everything for the final day. Getting him to a place where he sees things as they are, not worse than they are. Now it's just like, do you know what, maybe I just didn't pick my spot properly on that one, or maybe I just didn't line up quite, or I just, maybe I rushed it. It's a whole different thing. Because the ability to not run a story, an emotional story, shall I say, and blow it out of proportion, that's really, really important. Next day he played, he ended up finishing second. Okay, so it's a nice end to the story. But that's the message I want to give on that point. Okay, hope that's been useful so far. So now let's look at the physical side. So I'm going to try and bring up the presentation again, and hopefully it's going to come back to where we were. And it did, that's brilliant. Technology has worked. Okay, so now this one here, key principles for your body. Now I'm warning you now, we're going to run over a little bit today because I can see what the time is already, but we won't run over by too much. So let me just bring you across over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to look at the physical side, but the theme is consistent in the sense that what I'm trying to do is trying to teach you the nature, the truth about how your mind and body works. So I want to get to that with the body. Your feet are just like your spine in a sense, and I'm going to give you a real close-up of my feet in a minute, which would be a thrill for you. Your feet are like your spine in the sense that if they are in a neutral position and the bones are all aligned properly, the feet will work properly. They will become like shock absorbers. They will have a spring to them. They will allow movement above in the ankle, the knee, and through the pelvis. Everything else will move much more effectively. As it's designed, you'll be much more balanced through in the swing. Most of us don't give consideration to what our feet are doing. Now, here's the great thing. You'll have the opportunity at multiple times, most probably throughout your day, even when you're nowhere near a golf course, to think about what's going on with your feet. And there's a huge advantage in that, because by you bringing attention to them, bringing awareness to them, you will start to improve your golf game by doing that as well. And actually, there is a chance you'll start to improve your general structure and how your body functions as well. I can't promise that, but it's a possibility as well. So step number 1, I just want you to bring awareness. So if you're not already, by the way, I suggest play along with me with this part, take your shoes and socks off, and let's actually just get the sense of what your feet are doing. Okay, so I'm going to now I'm going to do 2 things. Now I've just realized I'm going to bring you up into a bigger picture in a minute. So let me just do that quickly now. And here we go. So I'm hoping now I can bring you down here. Okay, don't mind my lead. But what I want you to do is I want you to now stand. And I want you to think about your feet. And I want you to, if you like, massage your feet against the ground and just play on the outside, the inside, forwards, backwards, and just start to find a place where you feel grounded and connected throughout with your feet. Okay, right? Just do that. Just play with them and get that feeling there. You might even notice your toes maybe starting to spread out as you do that. Okay, you can stretch your toes, let them come back again, curl your toes together, Just play with them. Just find your feet and come back to your feet there. Okay, now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring up a slide because this is going to be really important for what we're going to do. Okay, and there is such a thing called the tripod foot. Oh, hang on, my mouse has just decided to freeze. So what I might, So you've got this slide up here now. This is called the tripod foot. And this is what I want you to be aware of. When your foot is in a natural or neutral position, the tripod foot will be present, if you like, because they will be the points of connection that you'll have in the ground. It's the same image on both sides, if you like, it's doing the same thing, just identifying 1, 2, 3. So just remember that image. Just remember that. I'm going to talk about that a bit now as we go through. So let me now, I'm going to just bring myself back into full shot. Okay, so, and let's just go back to the feet a little bit. So again, play along with me, get your shoes and socks off. And now what I want you to do is I want you to stand, okay, where you can focus on that tripod foot. So you can focus on the 2 points there and obviously in the heel as well. And just see if you can actually in yourself bring awareness to that. So you bring awareness to the fact that you've got those 3 points of contact there. So go from this way. So you're not just in the heel one here. You're not just in the toes one. And you're not one side or the other side of one or both feet. See if you can just get back to that place where you're got that tripod foot there. Now, for some of you straight away, that may start to feel like there's something going on with your posture. You may start to feel like when I get into that tripod place there, I start to feel much more stacked up, much more balanced. That my pelvis is sitting much more over my knees, much more over my feet. I feel a little bit maybe more erect. My spine is sitting more neutrally, my chest is out. Those type of things can start to happen when you start to find that tripod foot and that balance. That can be something that goes on for you there. So just doing that on a day-to-day basis, just being aware of that day to day can be huge. And I'm going to come on to the point of how we're going to start to move from there and why that's really, really important. Okay. So that's step number 1. Now, step number 2, and you don't need your club for this just yet, is what I'm going to see how far I can come away without pulling my wires out. From that position, what I'm going to ask you to do now is we're now going to build your golfing posture. So make sure you've got that tripod feet position right. And notice what it is different for you. It's like, oh, wow, I'm actually now much more forward on my foot. As long as you can still feel the heel connection on the ground, fantastic. Okay. Some of you may feel further back. That's unusual, but you might do. But right now I can feel those 3 points of contact. Yep, I've got that tripod. From there, we're going to build your posture, maintaining that tripod foot on both feet as you do it. Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to crease from the front of the hip here to form the posture. Now, I used to be guilty years ago of saying, push your bum out this way. It may look quite good, but the reality is now that tripod foot's changed. I'm now more into the heel than I want to be. So now what I'm suggesting is from the tripod foot, just crease at the front of the hip, and you should feel then the tripod foot stays in position. Spine still nice and neutral, knees positioned properly over the middle of the feet. Pelvis, again, will feel like it's over your feet, so you feel really grounded and balanced, springy, but solid in that sense. Now from there, I'm going to ask you, you've built your posture. Now I'm going to ask you to start to make your golf movement, and this is the way I suggest you do it. Just cross your arms over initially into that position here. In fact, I'll do it for this side from here. I'm going to do it without my club because I think it's going to catch that wire. From there, you're going to make the movement back and through. But here's the most important thing. I want you to feel like it's coming from the ground, that you're going to move from the ground to create the rest of the movement back and through. Now, obviously what's going to happen from an even position of the tripod on both feet, as you wind up this way, for me, a right-handed player to my right, obviously there's going to be more pressure through the tripod foot on the right side. And then it's going to transfer to have more pressure through the tripod foot on the left side. Okay. Now, there is a bit more intricate details to that, how it changes, but that's not necessary for today. I just want you to get the concept that my tripod foot is connected, engaged. I can do this when I'm standing around chatting to people. I'm going to become aware of that. And then from there, I can form my posture. If I'm bending at the front of the hip, I've still got the tripod foot in. I'm winding up. I can still feel the tripod feet, 3 points on both feet, but slightly more on the right now. And I can feel it now slightly more on the left. Obviously, my trail foot, for me, the right foot is going to come off the ground. Doing it barefooted, again, heightens your sensitivity, heightens your awareness to that. So that's going to be a very, very useful exercise. I like to then do it with a golf club across here, because then what I like to do when I've done that a few times, then I will put the golf club down and then I'll start to repeat the same movement, focusing on my feet making the movement against the ground to move the rest of my body. So I don't hold the golf club and then think, right, turn my shoulders and get my shoulders across. I still just think about the tripod feet moving the rest of my body. So I've always got that awareness of that connection. Now, this has multiple benefits. One is not only a much better movement, but two is actually, again, the connection of the ground through the tripod foot is also good mentally. And again, I want to share a quick story. There was a well-known lawyer in New York many years ago, and he was well known for staying cool and collected in the most intense courtroom battles. And they interviewed him one day. And they said to him, they said, how on earth, when everybody else is losing it around you, how do you stay so calm and collected? And he said, well, that's quite easy. He said, I just think about my feet. And the interviewer said, sorry, what do you mean you think about your feet? And he said, well, when it's all going mad around me and it's very intense, he said, before I do anything, I just connect to the ground again. I connect to my feet to the ground, just make sure I can feel the ground. And he said, from there, then I think much clearer, much straighter, much better. Now, also when you do this, you may have noticed that actually your shoulders drop, your arms hang better. Because if you notice as well, again, the way we live now, we're in our head a lot, we're at desks a lot, and our shoulders can lift here, we can get tension in the neck and in the head. You've left the ground. You don't even feel the ground anymore. When you feel that tripod, feet, shoulders relax, arms hang, spine relaxes, everything's stacked up, you're much more balanced, much more grounded. That helps you physically and mentally. So become aware of that, number one. Number two, build your posture from there. Number three, build your movement from there. Okay, I'm going to give you one final thing for the movement, which again, it doesn't need to be golf, but it's going to help you golf and it's going to help your body as well. It's going to help the kinetic chain of movement. So I think you see me well enough from here. From the standing position, tripod feet in situ. You're aware of the tripod feet in both sides. What I'm going to ask you to do is move in sections of your body. So you're going to move from the pelvis down only. So it doesn't matter which way you go first. I'm going to go to my right. And I'm just going to let the feet move, my ankles to move my knees, to move my pelvis round to the right. Once that's gone to a comfortable position, then I'm going to let my ribs go round as well. Once that's gone to comfortable position, then I'm going to finish off my neck and everything else that wants to come. There. Okay, now I can reverse that on the way back. I can bring below my pelvis back, my ribs back, and then my head back. Okay, but just winding up that way is going to be really, really good for you. Then, of course, do it the other way. Pelvis first, ribs, neck, and the rest of the upper body. Okay, doing that will again introduce a nice movement through the feet, through the knees, through the ankles, through the hips, through the ribs, through the spine, through the neck, in a nice order as well. That has some relativity to the golf swing as well, but it's also good for your physical well-being. Just doing that every morning, connect to the tripod, going through those movements, okay? And you'll start to, some of you actually notice, if you've had restrictions in your neck, you may see in doing that order, actually, you begin to move a bit easier. That's possible as well. Okay. How are we doing on time? We're pretty good. We're just a little bit over. So we're nearly there. Just something I want to go through with you as well. Are you finding this useful? I hope you are. Let me know in the chat box if you've got any feedback, any questions. Feedback would be great as well. Let me know, are you enjoying it? Is it useful to you? Is it challenging you? What questions do you have? Again, I'll have a look at those as we go through those. So with that body, again, finding the tripod feet, learning to live there when you're just having a conversation with somebody, when you're just standing having a drink, is going to do you a lot of good. It's then going to help you golf, which is a great bonus, isn't it? Learning to build your posture from there so the tripod feet stayed in. That might feel really different to you. And instantly, by the way, when you're in that position, now your spine has to do a couple of things in the golf swing, or many things, but it has to rotate and it has to bend. Well, it's really only when you've got the tripod feet there that you can even start to think about or allowing that to happen. And remember I said to you at the beginning, the magnificence is already in your body. Give it the place where it can do it from, and it will start to do things for you. Rather than you having to think about everything, it will happen much more naturally for you. And that's what we want it to be. Do that. Practice the spiral movement of letting your body turn through, just to allow that movements to come through. Do that. Once you've got the feeling for it, pick up a golf club and then apply that to the golf swing as well. And I think you'll find you'll start to feel balance in the swing. You'll start to feel rhythm in the swing. That's where the better timing comes from. That's where you're going to hit it out the sweet spot a lot more often. Okay? So now, let me just go through one more thing for you. I'm going to come back here now. So you can have a closer up of me there. So now hopefully my mouse is going to work for me again there now. Okay, let's just quickly bring this back up. Okay, so that was our feet one there. Hope you found this useful. Make sure you can see from here. Hope you've enjoyed the presentation and it's been of value to you. If it has, there's a lot more we could do. I'm about to bring something back, which I've not done for a little while, but because of the change in our world and the ability to communicate in this way, I've decided to bring it back. I'd like to make an offer to you. So I really would like your permission, if it's okay, just to spend a few more minutes. I know I've given you extra here anyway, which I hope has been good, but can I just have a few more minutes of your time just to explain something to you that may be of interest to you and could have a really great impact on your golf and your life? So on the basis I can't hear, I'm going to assume that's a yes, and just give me a couple of minutes of your time. So as I said, I run a program for many, many years called Mind of a Champion, and it's been attended by Ryder Cup players and pretty much beginners as well, because it's about, again, the principles of the mind, how the mind works, and to some extent the body, helping you develop the techniques, the tools, the strategies of how to get the most out of yourself and therefore improve your golf, which is always going to have a knock-on effect to your life. I'm about to bring that back. It's going through the final stages of getting ready, but it's going to be different. For modern world, it's going to be a series of modules that you can attend at your own time, at your own pace. And because as a thank you really for attending with me today, I'd like to make you a special offer, which is only going to be available until this program actually does get started. So it's a genuine special offer. So it's brand new, it's been revised, it's been updated for the modern world. Here's some of the things that you're going to taste of what you're going to learn. You're going to get the real science of how to stay emotionally balanced. We've touched upon it today, but I'm going to get you to do that further. Make it practical for you so you actually do learn to apply. I'm really into making sure you apply the things, not just learn them, because then they will really make a difference. You'll get the secret of goal setting. Everybody talks about goal setting, but there is actually, if you understand how the mind works, there's one part of it. If you do not know this, the chance of that goal becoming a reality is pretty slim. But when you do know it, a couple of amazing things happen. One, you've got much more chance of achieving the goal, but two, you begin to find out if it's something you really, really want to do. And that's important. Have you ever been in a situation where you tend to admire others, put others on a pedestal and say, oh, wow, they're amazing, whether it be a golfer or somebody else, and you put yourself down? I'll show you a technique of how to actually genuinely own those traits of others that you admire, so that when you see that you own those traits, then you start to demonstrate it and display them more, which is then going to have a profound impact on your golf and on your life as well. I'll talk to you about, give you techniques again, how to stay present on the golf course. So you're absolutely present on shots, which we know, again, the magnificence is in you. You have an amazing, magical mind and body. Got to get it to a place where that can come out much more often. If you've got habits you're looking to break, again, this can even apply into life as well. I'll show you how to break some of those habits and make them last so they're not difficult to break, okay? So that's going to be an important module as well. There are lots of modules to go through, and how you're going to build unshakable self-belief, because ultimately that's it, isn't it? If you believe in yourself, you believe in the shot you're about to play, you believe in your circumstance, believe in yourself, if it's unshakable and you're solid, then you're going to perform much better. And as I said, it can be way, way, way more than that. I always tend to try and over-deliver. So here's the offer I'd like to make to you. It really is a thank you for coming along today to be potentially one of the early adopters for this course. One-time offer. The Mind of a Champion, last time it was sold, was £197. You're going to get that entire program and actually a bit more, but broken into modules. I've compiled many tips over the years on my beliefs to do with the physical game of different areas of the game, putting, chipping, driving, etc. We're compiling those so there won't be like this collection anywhere else. It'll only be available to people coming on this. That's going to go for £97. I have a golf book already, Intuitive Golf, which touches upon some of the things we've spoken about today. It's really about the golf swing. You'll get the ebook version of that for £27. We're going to do a little special program about waking up your feet for better golf. So it's going to expand on what we've done today. And so if it's kind of grabbed your curiosity, you're going to get more of that. That's £57. And maybe what I think is one of the most important parts is you'll get private access to a private Facebook group for 3 months, where I'll be in there on a regular basis, posting information that's going to be relevant to what we're doing, helping you, but also answering some of your questions. So you get that direct ability to ask the question and get your questions answered as well. That's priceless. So all of that really, without the Facebook, has a value of over £378. Today, that offer is available to you as a thank you for attending this for £57. So that link's going to be in the chat. I'm going to make sure that's in the chat as we go through this as well now. So look in the chat. You can just click on that link and take you straight through. Remember to use the code CGA because it will be listed in there at £197. You'll see it's effectively a pre-order. So when the course is ready, you'll be straight into that. But make sure you click that link now. Use the code CGA to get your £140 discount to get it down to £57. You'll get all those other things as well. Everything you see listed there, the Mind of a Champion, the tips from me, the Intuitive Golf ebook, the Wake Up Your Feet for Better Golf, the 3 months private Facebook group with me, you'll get all of that for just £57 if you click that link today and use the code CGA. So I hope today has been useful. I hope you found the presentation really helpful. I hope you found it insightful. I've just remembered, we need to go and look at questions. So let me just do that now. So I'm just going to switch off this part here now. So hold on a second and we will go straight to questions. So bear with me.